So welcome everyone. It's just after 4 o'clock, so good timing. And today we're looking at a webinar around the online images series. So these are a series of 3 different products, all image-based. So these are products which are comprise visual metaphor images of organizations, some commercial applications in different learning situations. So 3 different products, and it's the digital versions we're going to take a look at today. As usual, for those who have seen some of these before, we're going to go through a similar format. I'll give you a little bit of background to the ELT, which stands for Experiential Learning Tools platform, and the subscription options, because if you have that, then you get access to all 3 of these products. A little bit just on why would you use images in learning at all. I realise speaking to many trainers as I do across the world, not everyone either uses or has maybe considered using images in learning. We'll look specifically at these 3 different products that form the series and how they work, a little bit of what learning you might extract for them, but they are the kind of versatile tools where I suspect you might have ideas on where you could use them in terms of applications that I might not. As ever, we'll try and have a little bit of time at the end for questions, but if you do have questions, I suggest you pop them into chat to my colleague Kim. Kim's mic is switched off and the camera's switched off just now because she's in the background trying to set up these sessions on the platform. But just ping her a question. She can answer it if she can. If not, she'll interrupt me and we'll try and pick it up then. So I realise not everyone will be aware of or will have visited this website, experientiallearningtools.com. But that is the custom platform that we started to develop during COVID and rolled out separately in the last just over a year ago. And that's entirely focused on online experiential learning activities. It is a separate company now called ELT Limited. But is majority owned by RSVP, and I guess most of the product development is still coming from RSVP tools. So again, you may not be aware, but we started this business in a very similar way to RSVP, so looking at individual products. But of course, in the digital world, we realized that it was probably easier to add subscription options. The first is that it provides better value for customers, much more difficult for us to do in the physical world to provide access to all the tools we're preparing and sending lots of boxes. That's something we can do easily on ELT. I think it provides people with the opportunity to develop experientially led programs, and that's something we've seen, I guess, develop much more in the last few years. Trainers moving away from let's do a one-shot experiential just to get people prepared for some content, and rather make the experiential aspect of the program the bedrock of where the learning happens. So stitching and sequencing various tools together gives you the opportunity to do that in an experientially led program. It may give some people who are not used to working online increased access to tools that they may consider. And as we were just talking about before we started the call there, that's everything from meeting clients online to delivering sessions online. And we hope it encourages experimentation. I mean, the whole idea of working experientially is to experiment and to try things out. There's never any no learning in an experiential session, no matter how badly it goes. And I can tell you I've had some really bad ones. So even if that happens, there's always learning to be had. So again, just kind of briefly, what do you get if you purchase a subscription as opposed to the individual products? It will give you access to any of the activities on the platform for 12 months from when you sign up. You can sign up directly from the website at the bottom there. And as we update the platform and introduce new activities, they all become automatically available as well. So you always have the most up-to-date version of things. If you were to go to that website at the top, here's what you would see. The good thing about that is that the experientiallearningtools.com domain is the same whether you're just looking at the website or whether you're running programs. So it's a single domain name that essentially has to be whitelisted. Having worked with the platform now for 3 or 4 years, we don't find I haven't found a customer who isn't able to access that. You're going essentially to our website page. And if you have a subscription, you would just sign in there and that gives you access to it. But there's lots you can explore there if you're interested in it. 3 levels of subscription from a solo, maybe an individual trainer, to a kind of small team where you can have up to 5 trainers, to larger team, and then of course at a corporate level there would be a second route there. So again, if any of this is of interest, please get in touch after the event. Okay, so that's a little bit about the platform and the subscription and how it works, and we're going to try out, so you'll get a chance to actually interact with the platform today. I guess the first question is, and I hinted at this at the start, why would you use images in learning? And as I say, these are a collection of metaphorical images of various organizational business situations. Well, like everyone today, why not ask ChatGPT? It seems to be a big thing in learning these days. So ChatGPT says metaphors can be an effective tool for deepening learning because they help learners understand complex or abstract concepts by relating them to more familiar concrete concepts. I do use ChatGPT occasionally, but I always try to give myself a rule that I never believe it. So let's look at some other research, and in fact it's not hard to find. There's lots of research around. From an educational psychology point of view, using metaphors to explain new concepts helps students understand the material better than just using literal explanations. Some others from Journal of Memory and Language. Often when we're working experientially, we're trying to make sure that people recall and remember things and try and anchor them a little bit better. Again, metaphors do that particularly well. Again, in educational psychology, you can enhance learning by helping students make connections between new information and their prior knowledge. And in fact, that's the way all adults learn. As adults, we're always trying to put new concepts, new information into a pattern based on prior knowledge. And it's one of the reasons I like using metaphor, because I think that really helps when you're trying to help people either change behavior, learn new knowledge, build skills, a wide variety of things. And then finally, from a language social psychology point of view, lots of evidence there about improving understanding of the material and how people actually engage with it. So one of the things, again, I think images do well is allows people to have their own voice and really personalize that learning really quickly. So all of that is a little bit of a filler. So hopefully Kim is ready for us to get started.
Yes, good to go.
Good, perfect, Kim. So we're going to look at 3 products today: images of customer experience, images of organization, and images of resilience. And these were based on something between 15 and 20 years in working with the physical card decks that have been around. And we're using exactly the same images in the digital version as in the physical version. Would you show me, just give me a thumbs up if anyone has any experience of any of the physical versions of the products. Thank you, Mark. Mark has some experience, and I think a few of the cameras are off, but that's fine. So so let me jump ahead. So again, as I said originally, when we set this up, the individual products could be licensed one at a time from the RSVP design website, and we've continued that while we still have this 2-pronged approach to both an all access via the ELT website and licensing individual products. So if you had a particular desire and only a unique use for maybe just one of those image decks, that's also still possible. And again, just let us know if that's of interest. So let's have a live demo so you can get a sense of it. So Kim, if you could just send those emails out.
Yep, they've gone.
Again, if you've had any experience of this, you'll know to look for this email from no reply at experientiallearningtools.com. So have a look. It typically takes a couple of minutes. If you don't see it in your inbox, check your spam. And I'm going to go through another couple of slides. So just hopefully it will arrive. And if it hasn't by the time we're ready to start, don't worry. Kim can send a link in the chat. So if you watch your email as it comes in, you should receive an email, something like that. And this is the way the platform works. Everyone is invited by email. So as you would in any traditional training session, usually you have an idea who's coming. So what Kim did was everyone who had registered for this webinar is on a CSV. She just drops that into the platform and then just removed those who hadn't yet joined us so that everyone is getting a chance to get a link. So you should receive an email like that. When you do, you can just hit that big green button, open session at the bottom. Nothing too much will happen at this stage, so feel free to click that, and that will just take you to the platform, which I'll touch on again in a second. So just a little bit of background to images of organizations. One of the first tools we actually developed, we started our SVP back in 2003. So, and prior to that, we'd worked with in a lot of large-scale events with a corporate cartoonist, and this was a guy who would wander around the audience, speaking to people and getting a quick summary of how things were going, and he would do a cartoon drawing of it, so that by the end of our event, we had a wonderful collection of pictures which showed what the audience was feeling of these large events. So we wanted to take that into our group work. So we asked actually the same guy to do some drawings based on descriptions of phrases that people had provided about what it felt like to be part of a team or an organization. Kim, just checking, I think we've got someone in the waiting room if you want to just admit them.
Yeah, they're admitted, yes. I think they're just taking a wee while to join.
That's okay, great. And so we tested that out with the cartoon designs and the process, and we got a first set of cartoons were produced back in 2005. So this activity has been around for a number of years. We like to work internationally, and one of the things we found when traveling, particularly to the Middle East, we had a cartoon that was more like playing poker, and we decided to replace that with something that was a bit more culturally acceptable. So if you've got an early version prior to 2013, one of the cartoons is a little bit different. A good thing from our point of view is that that's been in the top 10 products for us since 2005, so it's always been popular, and we've managed to ship that around the world. So language doesn't appear to be an issue when dealing with this set of images or indeed culture. If you had the physical version, you'll know there's a complete set of facilitator notes like most of our programs, and a question card which is used by the facilitator to help prompt if necessary. And again, that functionality is available in the online system. So can you just let Kim know, anyone let me know, just open your mic if you've got a problem, if you haven't received any emails yet.
I haven't received one, Graham, yet.
You don't have one, okay.
I'll send the link, no problem.
Great.
I don't have one either. This is Kara.
Kara, okay. Well, what Kim can do is she'll just send it to you in the chat in Zoom. That's probably the easiest way. And when you get that, then you click on the link, and as I say, click on the open session button, whether that's through the email or the chat link that Kim is just going to send. And that should take you to another level. I think if you get the link, you come straight here. Better to launch as a guest. You don't need to register on the platform. You can register. It just means you can go back and look at any comments or any of the activities that you might have made notes for. But most people would typically launch as a guest. And if you get there, you'll get to this session. So are most people able to get to this screen? Yeah. Great. Okay, perfect. So I'm just going to stop sharing a second and go and share one of the others. So everyone happy that they are...
Graham, can I just interrupt you for 1 second? I seem to be having a little bit of bother with Nikos. I've tried sending him the learner link and his own link, and he said he's getting a message saying the email has already been taken. I'm not sure. I've tried both links. I'm not sure what to send.
Send what to do is, you know, the spare one that we've set up, Kim, for
No, that's not working. Yeah, that's not working either. I've tried both. He said that both of them are saying it.
Okay.
Let me try again. Let me try putting that email in. You said Nikos, and I'll try again.
Okay, that's fine. So what I want you to do is have a look through those images, and I want you to select or click on 2 images. So just take a bit of time. So part of this activity is just to give you a feel for what the images are that we're using and how we might use them. the key in using really, I guess, any kind of image deck is what is the question that we're going to use, and how is this group, how am I wanting to move this group forward? We're all really just come here to understand it. We don't have a particular kind of training need in mind. So what I'd like you to do first of all is try and pick an image that represents maybe how your current team is when it's operating at its best. So if you're part of a wider team inside an organization, is there an image there that represents how your current team is when it's operating at its best? If you're kind of an individual or a consultant, it might be you can think of a client that you're maybe working with or worked with recently. So pick an image that represents working at its best. And then maybe another image, a second image that represents how your current team or a client is when it's operating at its worst. So I'm looking for you to select 2 images. Okay, Cara, are you able to see them all? Got some picked?
Yes, I have 2 picked.
Okay, great. So everyone is seeing all 16 cards just now. So what happens is that I then can move to the discussion phase. But this is phase 2, so we have a kind of couple of parts. So I'm looking just for a volunteer who maybe would want to just explain to the others why they chose the cards that they did. So someone want to give me pick a couple of the cards that they've chosen? Cara, Mark?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to, Graham. Obviously, I've got a little bit of experience in this as well.
You do, yeah.
So I will give you, just actually based on ourselves, our team, one of the cards I picked was the one with the obviously the juggling the balls, and obviously the rationale behind that is current at the moment where we've got a lot of things to go at the moment. All really positive, but at times it does feel like you're probably the one of the juggling the fire sticks is a good one at the moment, because if you're good at it, it's great. If you let one fall, it can burn a bit. So it's just trying to go through that process as a business of just understanding, where to put your efforts into.
That's great. Perfect, Matt. Thank you. So what I'm just trying to show here, I'll jump in and out from a kind of facilitator mode into participant mode. I'm just trying to give you a kind of sense of how this works. So Cara, would you mind, we're doing what's called putting on stage. So here are the 2 images that Cara chose. And the idea here is that you have a chance really for everyone to have a voice. So everyone has the opportunity, and it's up to the facilitator whether they decide to kind of spotlight them. So Cara, would you mind just explaining why you chose one of the 2 images you did, just to give us a sense of it?
Sure. So I'll go with the harmony image. Our team, we're a small team, but we work really well together. We're all on the same page. And when things are when we're in like lockstep, things work really well. Our process we're flowing. So that's why I chose that image.
Great. Okay. Perfect. So I think you can get a sense, anyone who hasn't used it before, of what we're trying to do now. If you wouldn't mind, if you can go back and look at your Zoom screen, I'm now going to show you a view of what I see on the platform. So as you can see here, I've got each individual. I can choose to put them on stage as I did with Mark, and then everyone sees the 2 that they see. Cara is active just now. The other thing I can do is that if I click on any image, and then I get a series of the facilitator notes that I talk about. So if I maybe wanted to interrogate the person a little bit more, maybe try to deepen the dialogue, there are some suggestions for the images here. So the one that Cara was talking about there, about the orchestra, we could go into some of the questions that are there. So if conversation dries up, or if the facilitator feels they maybe wanted to explore it a little bit more, then they could do that. So that's stage 1, where you're looking at individuals to give a little bit of feedback, and then stage 2 you move into, and if you look at your own screen, you would then see all of the cards. So I'm just going to stop sharing just now, so I'll let you concentrate back on the Zoom screen, on the ELT screen. So you can see here we've got a small group, but if you imagine you can have up to 50 participants, so it might be interesting, and maybe one of the things that you would be looking at as a question would be what is the single image that we would really want to focus on that would say how we want our team to perform and maybe some of the challenges that we've had just now. So this one would suggest how many of the images have been chosen by how many people. So it's one way to get a look and say, well, it might be of interest to know that, the image of the orchestra was chosen by more than 50% of the people. So that's the way the image series works, very much taking the process that we would use with the physical images, letting people choose their own, letting people share why they chose their own, and then looking to see if there's anything that we can take from that. The other thing, just in relation to the platform, is that if I've got a big green end session button, and if you're still watching the Zoom screen and I send that, then your screen disappears and the activity is closed. So if anyone were to go back and use that email, then it's not going to show for them. So hopefully that gives you a little quick overview of images of organizations. Let me just get back to my slides. Any questions on that just before we move ahead? Sure.
A technical question mainly.
Yeah.
What if we have a group that we don't have their email addresses before? Is it possible to have a generic link that everybody could use and be able to participate at that last moment?
Sure, yeah. We don't have a generic link. So one of the things I did, for example, before it's set up, you can just use a name if you don't have an email. So in Kim's setup, she had Learner 1, which had no email address. So she was able to copy that link and send it to someone. It's not a unique link because we need to know. So if Nikos is there, we need to see the cards that Nikos produced, and if Mark is there, we need to see the cards that he produced. So every participant has a unique link, essentially. But if you had 8 people and you didn't know their email addresses or even their names, you could number them 1 to 8. So it is possible, and you'll see some information on the platform about how you do that.
In this way, you have to send, you as a facilitator, you have to send a specific mail, learner 1 or tester, whatever, to each individual. So you have to spend some time to send during the workshop the email to each one of them.
Yes, you do. Yeah. As I say, it's like preparing for any training event. You would hopefully know who's going to be coming and can do some of that ahead of time, but some of it you may need to do on the fly. So in this case, it's a case of copying the link and either sending it in chat or sending it by email. So yeah, you would maybe need to set maybe an extra few minutes ahead of time to get everybody to the point where they're ready to go.
Yeah. Okay.
So in terms of the type of learning you might use images of organizations for, some of the uses we've had it clearly is a simple icebreaker or opening activity. One of the ways we use a physical activity a lot is just getting people kind of focused on the topic for the day. So let's say we're going to run a leadership program. We might ask people to just look at those images, and while we're waiting for everyone to arrive and get ready, the first thing of the day, pick an image that speaks to you about leadership, either good or bad. Certainly in terms of team development, clearly lots of these metaphors are pretty recognizable for most people. So in terms of how teams have developed, we use it quite a lot as a review tool. So particularly if you've had a more detailed product experiential learning activity that you've been working with has maybe gone on for some time and there have been different phases in it, using images of organizations might help people to kind of describe how they were feeling at certain points in that activity through time. And we do have some customers who use it for performance reviews. So, if I'm having a performance review from my boss, I lead a team, I might open with, tell me about how this year has been, what did your team go through? Pick some images that talk about how your team performance or your performance within that team. A lot of coaching is now done online, and clearly visual tools are really useful for doing in one-to-one. And then this idea of exploring organizational values, so which of those images, best represents where we're trying to get to as an organization. So pretty broad topics, I guess, in something that has been developed just by people saying how it felt to be part of a team or an organization at any one point in time. Okay, so we're kind of halfway through the session, which is fine. We've got another couple of activities to go through. Kim, are you okay ready to send out images of customer experience?
Yeah, they've gone.
Yeah, okay. As I say, doing live demos is always interesting, but the backup is there, so Kim should be able to copy that and send it to you.
Yes.
But we'll have a check after just in case there's been any problems. But if some people are getting them, I would suggest that the emails are certainly going out okay. So again, just a little bit of quick background before we dive into the customer experience one. So images of customer experience was the second one we created back in 2008. And we were getting a lot of I guess, calls and requests for support around customer service. I don't know whether this was, this was 2008, 2009 was, the start of the, financial crash. I don't know whether that was a precursor or whether this was just us really getting right in the middle of it. But the kind of focus around, customer experience seemed to be pretty strong at that point. So what we did is, again, we asked to have a similar style. The cartoons seem to have worked quite well. They seem to be quite approachable. What we were looking at here was trying to get representations of a feeling or an emotional response that was generated when service that was received was noticeable, whether it was because it was particularly good or particularly bad. And the reason we chose that approach is that when we spoke to trainers and others who are, experts in customer service and customer experience, which we wouldn't class ourselves as experts, the thing they said was most challenging for most people was that customer service in an organization was somehow abstract. They weren't, consuming the service that they were providing it for. And really the hope was to try and make a personal connection between an individual and what their experience was so that they could better translate it. So going back to some of the reasons why metaphor is good, that's what we're really hoping to do with the images of customer experience. And we did lots of testing and got a few of our customers to do lots of testing to make sure that we got these images right. So for some people, they're not as obvious in terms of the metaphors, maybe as images of organizations that you've just been through. And again, we launched that in 2009. Again, it's been used internationally, and again, it follows the same format. So the thing I would say in terms of its applicability, we were originally thinking about this just for sales customer service roles. And again, not all of us are in external customer facing roles, and probably the people that we're working with are not in that situation. But one of the reasons it became clear is that most of us represent a part of a chain between some kind of supplier and some kind of customer. We need things, especially if you're in a large organization, we need things from other people, other departments or suppliers in order to do our job, and therefore provide what other people, other departments, or indeed customers need or want. So arguably, there's very few people who I would say are not in some kind of customer service role, either receiving customer service from a supplier or providing customer service. So hopefully there are some applications here. So again, let's go into the live demo. Again, the same drill. If you haven't received anything yet, let me know. I'll let Kim know, I should say, and she can send you the link.
Graham, Nikos appears to still be having problems, but it's definitely the right email. So unfortunately, I'm not entirely sure how to fix that.
Yeah. Okay, and neither the other one, what? The spare one?
No,
Kim,
I've done both. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that, Nikos. I'm not quite sure. I'm going to have a look at that, and I'll contact you after the session, because that's really, really strange that it's not going through. And I'll share the screen so you'll at least be able to see them. So this time I'm just looking for you to pick one of the images. And what I want you to do is just think is there an image that reminds you of a memorable recent experience with an internal or external business customer or supplier, either positive or negative? For many of us, we've just come off the Christmas shopping campaign and had probably lots of experiences with wondering if things are going to arrive in terms of customer service, or indeed trying to deal with that. So hopefully we've got an image that reminds you of that feeling or an emotional response. So I'm going to stop sharing and just flick over to the platform because I haven't started this activity yet. Okay, so I've now started the session and hopefully your screen will change. For your benefit, Nikos, I'm actually going to go back and share my screen just so that you can see what's happening.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so you should be able to see the screen here, Nikos, and everyone having a look at all the images. I'll give you just a couple of minutes just to review each of those images. And maybe just as you're looking at them, the kind of advice I would give as a facilitator would be to interrogate the image a little bit. So what is it you see that's going on? Kind of describe to yourself what's going on in the picture, and then try and relate that. Does it stir an emotion for you? What is the emotion that you think you're seeing in the picture? And again, it won't surprise you, I'm sure, to know that there's a mix of generally negative and positive emotions in here, as there was in images of organizations. There are a range for most people from positive to negative experiences. So Nikos, just any of the images remind you of anything as a customer experience you've had recently, positive or negative?
From the ones that I see right now.
Yeah, or any of the ones that I'm conscious I'm kind of scrolling for you.
Maybe the one that has already in the second row right now, what we see, the second, the lady that holds two boots, but she was imagining a boat.
Okay, perfect. So what does that make you think of?
Last week, I don't remember, I had ordered a pen mouse for my computer, and although I was thinking that it would be easy to use it and actually write with the mouse, it's very inconvenient. You cannot hold it easily. You cannot write easily as handwritten, so it's useless. I was imagining, the boat, but I bought a boot.
Yeah. That's perfect, and that's what I mean about the emotional response. When a customer says, if you could speak to them all and says, well, what I've got is useless, then you've probably not only damaged that individual sale, you might have damaged more than that. So again, whether they're positive or negative, the idea is to use that and then link that emotional response to things that maybe are happening in our own organization. And obviously we don't have a real context just now. So from a facilitator point of view, again, we would move to the second stage. We can look at who's on stage, because we don't have a big group. There's not a lot. So Cara, if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to put you on stage and just, give us the benefit of one of these. If you've got a positive one, that would be great.
Sure. I'll go with maybe the middle image of the person helping maybe an elderly person with, maybe describing photos or just helping them. I have no idea. It just seemed very helpful to me. So, and very positive. And I think that's something that in my world, although I don't deal specifically with like customers, but I think being in learning and development, you have clients internally and you want to be helpful and provide, that kind of service. So that's, essentially why I chose that one.
Yep, absolutely. And if I wanted to extend that, there's some more notes here. So this one, the idea behind the picture originally, and it doesn't really matter what the original idea was, but this idea of having this, showing interest in something that's important to others, and as you say, that's showing an interest in it, and being supportive. I think particularly when you don't share the visual frame of reference that we have just now. So if you're dealing in a telephone, that's something that's really important. And I think, certainly the events I've been in, that can be quite abstract to say to someone in telephone support, you need to show interest. But the difference when you can start to talk about what that actually means can really make a difference. You can actually get people to change and really understand why this is important if you're in frontline customer service. So again, that's how we would go through that. So that's images of customer service, and again you have the same process of with a larger group would be able to look at the images that were chosen. We may choose to say, well, interestingly, that most of us have chosen more negative than positive imagery. Why is that? It's probably not that there's just more, or maybe it is that there's more negative customer service experiences out there than there are positive, or it's maybe just that those tend to linger a little bit longer. Whether it's a truism or not. If you have a bad experience, you tell 10 people. If you have a good experience, you maybe don't tell as many people. So really important in that kind of line of work. So I'm going to stop sharing now. And again, if I end that session here, then those cards should disappear from the screen. Any questions on that as an activity? Okay, that's fine. Let me go back to our slides, and we're moving through just into the last one now. So let me just jump ahead. So in terms of learning for a customer experience, fairly obvious. I think two principal areas. One is about trying to develop behaviours that promote high levels of customer satisfaction. So in Cara's case, how do we get more of that? In Nikos's case, how do we get less of that? How do we make sure that the customer knows what they're going to get? Because if you try to push a sale on something inferior, it's likely to do you more damage than good. So it's really important. And it may be, if this was a real business case, we'd say, well, do we try to make Nikos be more self-serving and give him information so that he really knows what he's getting? Or do we try to have that conversation up front and advise him not to buy that product because it's not going to meet his requirements? Identify what they can do to ensure customer expectations are exceeded, because certainly if you can do that, then that's where you get a lot of benefit. And then much like the previous one, there's lots of things you could do around this being part of a customer chain and supply chain in terms of team development, individual performance review or coaching. Okay, so let's go on to the last one. Kim, can you send out the images of resilience?
Yep, sure.
Great. So again, you'll see hopefully the email. Nikos, I'll be surprised if you get one a third time, but I'll do the same and I will figure that out and come back to you later. So a little bit of background on images of resilience. So this, the most recent of the three, and 2011. Interesting, maybe when I think back, because this is kind of the bounce back after the last recession. A lot of people. It was probably the first time I guess I came across this word resilience being talked about a lot in terms of learning and development, and perhaps it was because of those of us who were certainly in the L&D market suffering through that financial crash. But a lot of requests around tools and things that could be used around resilience, and kind of separately but linked to the idea of emotional intelligence becoming much more important. So again, we went back and we started to look at words and descriptions around resilience. And really what we were looking at was the connections with stress, with change, with challenge, and indeed with learning. Because one of the things that's clear, if you want people to learn something, you need to have a fair amount of resilience. Learning something new is not easy. And often people who give up with formal education can often be the fact that they don't have a strong form of resilience and really need to develop that further. Rather than do it all ourselves, again, we collaborated with a group called the EI for Change. They are kind of experts in emotional intelligence, and they very much came at the idea of building resilience is also building your emotional intelligence, and we use a lot of their input in terms of developing these materials, not only the suggestions around questions, but the imagery themselves, and did a lot of testing with external groups. So this has been around now for over 10 years. Again, we've used it in most cultures and customs, so we're pretty comfortable that it works in that way. And again, it's exactly the same format. So hopefully we've got a link and we can go in. And this time when I said it, I want you to try and think of a couple of images and pick a couple of images for me. So the first is to choose an image that reminds you of a situation where you need to call on your resilience and you recognize your need to actively manage your response. So you're going to see images of various situations, and some of them may trigger something like that and say, well, yeah, I recognize that kind of situation. And the second image I want you to pick is maybe something that reminds you of a useful strategy that you've used or could use to develop your resilience. So the whole idea about using this deck and this imagery and working in this way is to try to get people to further develop that resilience. So that's what it's about. So I'm going to stop sharing just for a minute and go back into the platform and start this third and final activity. And we've got about 10 minutes left, so it'll give us a chance just to have a view of it. In fact, just before I do that, I'm just going to go back in and share, not just for Nico's benefit, for those of you who haven't seen what happens in the back end of the system, you'll be able to see it now. So what we have here just briefly is all the activities you have available. So I have online images of online image series, webinar images of resilience. Already invited people. When I hit the start session button, then your images should start to appear. So again, I just take a couple of minutes to look through those. Again, there are 16 images. We find that 16 works well. It's not too many to overwhelm people and allows them really just to focus maybe on 2 or 3 that make sense. So again, these are not as obvious to most people in testing in terms of how we describe them. But most people, again, would say, well, what do you see in the image? What does it relate to? What does it remind you of? So giving Nikos more a chance just to look down those. And it wouldn't matter in practice, you know, people say, well, I have no idea what the image is meant to represent. That's not important. What you're looking for is people to link the question and to personalize it. So the first one was, you know, do you see situations in any of this imagery which remind you of when that happens to you or something like that, you realize that this is where you have to show a bit of resilience. A lot of worried faces on some of these. So go ahead and pick one for that. And then second, you might see in them some kind of strategies that people might use when things are getting a bit difficult and stressful. And if you see an image that reminds you of an approach you would take, then click that. Anything that jumps out of you for either of those, Nikos? I know you're
maybe
seeing them for the first
one
time.
that I have seen is the one that shows people on a wheelchair.
Yeah,
The
this
reason
one here.
independently of what they have happened
Yeah.
their lives, they continue enjoying life.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and in fact, that's exactly where the picture came from. The description we gave to the cartoonist, determination. These people have overcome major adversity and are doing something that is fun, competitive, and they enjoy. You know, so no matter what challenges you've had previously or you've got just now, they are, you know, have a positive outlook. You know, and those people who have high resilience manage to have that. You know, if not all of the time, then most of the time. And then you could go into discussion, you know, either in a group as we are or individually about, you know, what is it that facilitates that, you know. In this case, it might simply be the opportunity to be alongside a group who are in a similar situation. You know, they're from this picture, it looks like none of them are fully able-bodied. So maybe that is, finding your tribe or finding people who are similar to yourself. So I'm conscious. Let me just go into discussion phase and see. Mark, you've picked a couple. Do you want to just open and give me a description of one of them for us?
Yeah, I'll take probably the first one that I did there was probably the resilience piece for me was, you're traveling in a direction and and sometimes, you've sort of that idea in your head, but things happen or things change. And it's having that piece of resilience to be able to actually move with that and change direction slightly in terms of what you're doing, and not being actually, I suppose, disappointed by that change. It's actually embracing change rather than just worrying about that direction all the time.
Yep, that's great. It's another aspect of resilience. I think that not everyone recognizes sometimes. So if you're the kind of person who says, I've got great resilience, it could also mean that, if you do need to change direction, and we've seen this in a business situation, particularly during COVID, where you had to change direction really quickly. If you're the type of individual who says, no, I'm going to stick this out, I'm not going to change the direction, sometimes too much resilience is not a good thing. So again, some of you may have heard me talk about this, but there was some research done on University in Wales, a big meta study of what makes powerful learners and what gives you learning power. And there were 7 elements identified, and one of them they called resilience. And what they found, they had a kind of self-scored profile that people did. And when they did this with young offenders, so people who had caused damage, criminal damage, all sorts of things, they found that they scored really high on this resilience metrics. What that meant was they would keep doing the same thing time and time again without worrying about the consequence. So sometimes, again, in discussion, having too much resilience is not always a good thing. Sometimes you actually need to step away from the situation in order to be able to recover it. So I think, in my experience, letting people read into whatever they want within these images is really useful. So that's how they work. Again, 2-stage process, the same in all of the images series. They're just focused on different things with different notes behind each question. And then, again, the list of which cartoons have been chosen by which people. So end the session, and therefore the links no longer work. So that's me. Got a few minutes left for questions. Happy to take questions on the platform generally, or on any other topics that people have got while I'm here, if you want.
Not so much as a question, Graham, but we've certainly had fantastic feedback. Particularly, we use images of organization a lot, and it's actually an interesting one because of all the activities that you guys do and these sort of things, it's probably the one you would think would have the least impact, because it's not actually necessarily as hands-on or as these things, but actually it does have a massive impact on people, and I think it gives a really safe environment for people to actually express how they feel within that, particularly employees maybe talking in front of senior management or business owners. It gives them that confidence to be able to actually articulate how they're feeling with it. So yeah, it's great. Again, certainly online stuff, all of our stuff is currently face to face. But with a bigger piece of online, it's fantastic because with the ability to be able to highlight and showcase what people are picking is a great thing as well, because it would be easy to hide behind the screen and sort of say, no, I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, great. Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the plug. Always good. Thank you very much, Nikos. I will come back to you, and we'll try and figure out what's going on. Very strange. That's a first for me. And I'll stay on if anyone wants to catch up on anything.
And it was strange that the email was already pre-typed in the cell that we type the email. It was preset. I couldn't change it in some of the links that Kim sent.